Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
Feelings. I loved what you were saying, Kevin, about how men have certain feelings that they're allowed and then not allowed. Same with women. And I think that's kind of the beauty of us doing this together, is feeling those feelings. And I work with recovering addicts, and all of a sudden they're calling me up going, I have feelings. And I'm like, feel them.
Yeah.
Don't drown them. Feel them. And they're like, I don't know how. And I think that that's, it's easy to say feel the feelings, but really it's taking some time and letting whatever those feelings are. They're not going to kill you. It feels like they will.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like they will destroy you, but they won't, because you're a smart human being. And if you take the time to let those feelings just kind of sift through, you'll be able to make some sense of them.
And originally I was thinking this is another one of those topics where men have the handicap because we're not allowed to have feelings. But then I realized, no, men and women are handicapped with feelings. Men aren't allowed certain feelings, and women are also not allowed certain feelings. They're just different types. But the main thing is, when we're survivors, we're taught not to have feelings. We're taught that feelings aren't good. I know my father was alcoholic, and he had really dangerous anger. He would go into rages. He would really blow up. And so I learned anger was a dangerous feeling. And I bottled up that. But the thing is, feelings are hard, but when you bottle your feelings up, you're not really living a whole life.
Exactly.
You're limiting your feelings. You're limiting your life. You don't get to express things fully. You don't get to enjoy things fully. You're really limiting how you live when you don't allow yourself to have feelings.
And what I know that I have done is, and I call it, as a Christian, I call it sinful self-protectiveness, is that I get protective, but it's not in a way that's healthy. And it's a way to kind of almost stealth, like it's like you go stealth. And I will say a lot of people think they know me, but they don't know anything about me, which is okay with me, but it's the way I have navigated. And I have done a lot of work, and I have felt the feelings. But what happens is, when you first start, the feelings you have are at the age that the abuse happened. So if you were a toddler or if you were a teenager. So as you work through them, so something happened to me last week. Somebody accused me of something, and it was such a silly accusation. All it would have taken was a phone call to say, hey, did you know that you were doing this? I work in radio. It was a pronunciation of a word. And nobody got a hold of me to say that's not how you pronounce it. But the accusation was, you said it wrong the first week. I gave you, I went through the right channels. We told you how to say it the second week, and you chose not to correct it. That was the email. That wasn't the truth. Nobody bothered to pick up the phone and say the words to me. But those feelings, they got a hold of me, right? Because I got defensive. It's like, you are accusing me. You don't know who I am. And then I realized, I stormed into my boss's office and I said, I just CC'd you on an email because I would never on purpose do this. And then when I got a chance to settle down, I realized that person, she just does not have very good social graces. I'm not going to get fired. It would have been right if somebody just called and said, this is how you say this word. But I let those feelings really dictate some of my actions, like
Oh, yeah.
storming into my new boss's office, And later I thought, okay, I wish I would have just sat with it, like I've done in the past. I wish I would have just sat with it before I talked to my boss, before I sent an email. And so even as we heal, there's different levels of feelings.
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt shame.
Yeah.
You are bad. You're not good. You can't even speak.
Yeah.
And you're working radio.
Someone was shaming you.
Exactly.
And so immediately you went into defensive mode.
Yeah.
And this is one of the important parts of this topic I want to talk about is when you're used to numbing your feelings, to, having a mute button on all your feelings, when you first go into therapy and you start, or however you're dealing with this issue, and you start expressing feelings, you have to be very aware that you have to do it in a very safe setting, because when you're first letting these feelings out, it can be overwhelming. It can be really overwhelming.
It is.
I remember, I hate to say this, but I almost had to wait until after I was divorced from my first wife and was living alone to express all of my feelings, because I didn't feel like I could express all of them with her. I was very guarded. There were certain people I could express them with, but I couldn't. It just didn't feel safe to express them with her, because men don't cry.
Right.
Men don't feel grief. Men don't break down. These are all the stereotypes that we live with. And it's not just survivors, it's our society. We have certain expectations for men and women, and men don't cry, women don't get angry, all these.
Or for women, it's like, just be quiet, shut
Yeah.
up and take it, don't make waves.
Yeah, and men have to be stoic. They have to stand strong, take everything, handle it in stride.
And it feels like, for one, if you cry, you're never going to stop. It feels like when you feel the feelings, like they are going to be as bad as the original, which is not true because it's already happened. So yes, the feelings feel terrible, but you're in a different place because you're an adult now. And giving yourself that space. And I love what your wife said. Her counselor said, feelings are information, and that she's checking in with her feelings. And so often, so for me, what happened after I went into my boss's, and for, me, so storming in is like walking in going, hey. Anyway, but afterwards, I thought, what? Then I reflect, what are these feelings? Well, it was shame. It was shame. You just told me I was a horrible person because I couldn't say a word.
Yeah.
And I believed it. See, that's the difference. She did not shame me. She accused me. She didn't need to do that. But I believed something about myself. And so I ran with it. And that's not who we want to be. And when we think about doing this as a conscious person, so I'm conscious, I'm paying attention, I try to be in the moment, and I still reacted. So think about when we're not conscious, right? So we have these feelings, we're trying to stuff them, we're reacting versus acting, and that feels so out of control. So the truth is, when we start to feel the feelings, even if we have those moments that feel out of control, once we reflect on them, we're like, oh, that's what that was. And then pretty soon we catch it before we act out.
Yeah, but I think it's important, and I think that's why it's so important when you're first dealing with the issues that you have of being a survivor, to find your safe people, find the safe place where you can express feelings, because that's how you get through the grief, is to feel the grief. That's how you get through this pain, the sorrow, the anger, is to actually feel them and express those feelings. See, if you don't ever feel and express them, they're going to stay there.
And here's an example. Well, first of all, we don't think it's okay to feel. Usually, and especially I see this with addicts, there's joy and anger. Right? You're happy or you're sad, but there's such a realm in between. And I've been working on getting more joy in my life. And what I've realized is I do gratitude every day. I get centered in the morning. I have devotion time. Different people call it different things. But once we start to learn how to feel, then we can actually kind of get stuck in that feeling of sadness. Even though we're doing the work, we've felt that feeling for so long. And so I'm actually taking a position, I'm sitting up straight, and I'm actually smiling, and as I do gratitude. So I'm changing my whole body language. to embody joy. Because when we have been holding these secrets for so long, that's the way our body reflects. And so it's actually feeling the feelings and then actually going the next step to grab the new feelings.
Yeah. Once you kind of allow yourself to feel, then you allow yourself to feel the full range. And I remember when I was first in therapy and doing feelings for the first time.
Doing feelings.
Yeah. I mean, really,
I know.
I had limited, but I remember I was yawning a lot. And I would be just like expressing this stuff and just torn up and yawning. And my therapist is like, I'd apologize because I'd have like this fit of yawning, and he'd be like, I'd be like, I'm sorry, and he's like, no, it's okay. What you're doing is you're physically reducing the tension in your body. Yawning is a way of, it's not an emotion necessarily, but you're releasing tension. And so your body does express. And that's something we don't realize all the time, but you express with your body. And sometimes your body will express without you even knowing it. And yawning apparently is a really good thing to do when you're going through a lot of tension, I was experiencing a lot of the grief over, and I was just being torn up and then just yawning. It was like, what is going on?
Interesting.
But I think we have to learn that first we have to find a safe place and then learn that you're not going to be destroyed by expressing feelings, because I was really afraid at first, partly because my dad would just rage.
And it wasn't accepted. So it's like now you're saying, I have to feel, but it's not accepted. So how do I even do that? It's like, how do I ride this bike, right? You've always told me to ride it backwards, and now you're telling me to ride it frontward, and I don't know how to do that. So it's actually a learning process as well. There's a technique called EFT. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
It's tapping. Have you heard of tapping?
Yes, I have.
So, but here's what I love about it. And you see this in different type of stress practices is you start with, oh, this happened. Oh, this is terrible. So you're taking what happened because, right, we've always had to go, no, it's okay. I'm going to be fine. So we go, no, this happened and it's terrible. And we say it's horrible and I'm mad because of this and this. So if you can't express the feelings, you use your words and you just start to say what it is. And we think, oh, we can't be negative. But the truth is, whenever we say the words, we get it out, we validate ourselves, it loses its power. So it's actually so much better to say the words and to yell and scream and punch a punching bag.
Yeah.
Because once you've done that, then it's out. But when we hold it in, it has nowhere to go and it doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
So when we say the words, now it has a name and we can actually physically release it.
We're not controlled by it anymore. But it is a process. I mean, you have to be patient. I know for me, it took me a while I was able to get to little steps at a time, but anger always scared me.
Were you afraid like you would do something terrible, or it just reminded you of your dad?
Yeah, I thought it would just blow up because he did. He would just blow up. But it was okay to just blow up. And I realized that in a safe, controlled
you're not hurting
setting,
anyone.
I was just destroying pillows. And it was okay. And it felt really good.
Yeah.
And when you release those feelings, you're getting through the grief, the anger. But if you don't actually express them, you won't get through those.
Right. And part of the reason we don't is we think we're wrong.
Or that the feelings are bad.
Exactly. And some of us don't even know what happened to us was abuse yet. We know we have something, but we haven't been able to name it.
Yeah.
Right? We maybe think that's normal because my sister and I were talking about this morning. We were probably 4 and 5, and our mom was gone because she was mentally ill and she would sometimes disappear for weeks at a time. And my sister said, she's 3, I'm 4. Teach me how to make oatmeal. Okay, this is back in the early 60s, right? So we get our little stool, we turn on the burner, we put water in the pan, we boil it, we add the oatmeal. We're 3 and 4. We thought that was normal, right? And so those are the things. It's like first you recognize, holy crap.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Then then it's not okay to be mad at your mom. I mean, for goodness sake, she's mentally ill, but you still have to.
Yeah.
Because even though, she didn't maybe do the things on purpose, it still affected us.
Yeah.
And I read this great thing it's yes and. It's like your parents could have done their best and still hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to make it black or white. No, they did the best. I'm going to move on. Or if I face it, I'm going to be weak. Well, in the Bible, it says where we are weak, he is strong. And when we are able to express that, that's how we get strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where he finds us in our weakness, in our times of grief and pain.
And also with grief, because really that's a type of grief. One thing I've really seen is especially people who lose people, like parents who lose children, there's a certain amount of grief the world allows you. And then after that amount of time, 6 months, they don't want to hear about it anymore. So if you're recovering and you don't take what they think is the proper amount of time, you're still sad, you're still struggling, you're still in counseling, then you again think something must be wrong with you because you're not grieving in the proper amount of time, which that's a fallacy.
You're not over it yet.
Exactly.
I know for men, crying is not always accepted. And
rarely accepted.
And if you... I cried so hard for so long, but I didn't really cry until I was single again, because I felt like
you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, I didn't think it was okay to cry in front of someone for most of my life. It was like, it just wasn't a manly thing. But it is.
We've done our boys such a disservice.
Well, and girls too, because they can't be strong. They can't be.
They're too much. That's what I have come up against as a single woman. It's like, well, you're too much.
Yeah,
well, I'm independent. I have to take care of myself. Somebody's got to do it.
Well,
and if that's threatening, but that's it. It's like nobody's saying that to me, but that's the message was perpetrated.
Yeah, we have these messages that say, you can't do that because that's not what girls do or what boys do.
And I see it with my recovery clients. Their parents are, a lot of times people are trying to get well, but their parents are still sick. And so their parents are still saying, shh, just be quiet. Don't make waves. We talked about this a few episodes ago. And that we have to be able to find our place to say, be an activist for ourselves. I am going to make waves. And even if it's just in the room with my therapist, I have every right.
Yeah. And that's why I really encourage you to find a therapist you feel comfortable with. And if it works for you, group therapy was amazing.
Yeah.
As far as being able to express your feelings. For me, it was breakthrough. It was where I was able to express my feelings with someone I wasn't paying to express my feelings to. Just these other guys that got it.
Right.
And
there's so many more ways to do it now than when you started through. There wasn't Zoom. In person was it. You couldn't even really do a conference phone call. And now there's so many ways to do it to get the support. But one thing that I've struggled with is being seen. When I'm on Zoom, I don't want to put my camera on, right? Because I don't want to be seen. And I realize that's part of the abuse, you know, don't be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And so I have adopted a new thing is that I will be seen. And it's funny because I work in radio and we're podcasting.
No one sees us.
That's right. So it seems kind of ironic. But on the other hand, it's like, no, I'm not going to hide anymore because that's what we do. We find a way to hide, whether it's a mask, whether it's by being a wallflower, whatever survival skills we have. In the Bible, it says when we were young, we did these things, but now we're older and they don't work. And that's what happens is when we're in the amygdala and we're in survival skill or survival mode, then we are acting in a way that's really not appropriate, but we're still acting survival when we're not actually in survival because we've trained ourselves.
Yeah, that's what we've learned.
Right. We're always hypervigilant. We're always watching when we don't actually have to do that anymore. Yeah. And that is the extreme value of a counselor because we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And so when they're able to point it out, and then we're like, that
makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Even permission. Saying you have permission. I mean, saying no. What happens when we're 2 years old? Don't say, we want to say no to everything. And they're like, you can't say no. We teach people not to say no. We teach children not to say no. And then we're like, why didn't you say no?
Yeah, but that's what we've learned. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of, I get to go up on stage.
Yeah,
Speaking
tell us.
of wanting to be invisible at church, they want to talk about, we're doing this thing where it's not testimonies. It's just like, where has God put you during this whole COVID thing? And our pastor asked my wife and I to be there, and I'm like, yeah, on stage. I've always had stage fright. Always. And that's why I never got into acting or anything
But
else
that's
related.
why you loved
That's why I
voiceover.
love being on a microphone, because no one is looking at
So
me.
mysterious.
And yeah, I get to experience being on stage in front of church. But luckily, we're at 25% because of the restrictions. So there's only a few people, and I'm sure I can find like the one spot where no one's sitting that I can look at and pretend no one's there. But we learn to be invisible. I mean,
Oh,
first there's the stereotype feelings that we learn. Men don't cry,
right.
girls aren't bossy or
Right.
aggressive,
Yeah.
and then there's the ones we learned from whoever taught us these issues, that we can't be seen, we have to hide because we're trying to be safe. And also, if we show that we're sad or upset, if we cry, then we're going to be victimized more because we're weak. Or if we show anger, they're going to be defensive and attack us. There's all these other things. So when we're surviving, when we're going through abuse, we're being taught that we have to bottle up, shut down our emotions because they aren't safe.
Well, and like you said, you had to wait till you were single to be able to really grieve. I remember in college, there was this issue in our apartment. And I remember somebody said, well, why don't you just talk to your roommates? And I was like, they don't care. And I truly believe that. Now, the truth is they would have cared. But in my mind, nobody cared what I thought.
Because that's what we're taught.
So if you speak up, then you're just going to be in trouble and make everybody mad, and nobody's going to do anything anyway. So why bother? And I think for me, my personality is sort of like go with the flow. Like if everyone's going out to dinner, I'll go where they want to go. I'm not like, I have to have Italian. Right. So I have that nature anyway. But so then, for me to go, okay, it's okay if I don't want to do that. Right. But we're so afraid that if we rock the boat, everybody will walk away and then we'll be alone again. Or they won't be able to handle our grief or our sadness. And the truth is, it doesn't matter whether they can or not. We find the person who can, which is a counselor, a support group, because they can handle it.
And then we have to practice our feelings at first. You have to practice. You have to let them out a little bit at a time. Sometimes they come out all at once.
Like, whoa, where did that come from?
Usually it's after you practice a little while and then all of a sudden, and then you're able to actually express your feelings with your family, with your friends. And you try it out a little bit at a time, and you find out that the world didn't end crashing down on you. Yeah,
it sounds so funny to hear us say this out loud, but it's so true.
I mean,
right? You said no, and the world didn't end?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
It's amazing, but I really feel that feelings are important.
These feelings are feeling really felt.
I feel these feelings really feel like a big deal. And they are. They are. Feelings are important. I think that's one of the biggest achievements for me, was to be able to express, because I was so bottled up. I was so... Men learned to be stoic already, and then because of this abuse, I was just... I would not express much.
Right. What's wrong? Nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's something. Nothing.
I mean, people, and Charnel still thinks I'm passive aggressive at times because
you shut down.
I
Something
still
triggers
shut
you,
down
you shut
sometimes, down. And I see it more now and am aware of it, and I'm able to get past it. But it still happens.
Yeah.
But that was the norm.
Right.
For most of my life, was people thought I was passive aggressive because I just didn't have feelings. And I think you really miss out on a lot of life when you're not expressing and feeling your feelings. You're just missing out on so much.
The work that we do with kids, so often we have that chart with all the faces and feelings. And what's so amazing about it is that there's so many.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're so angry and you're like, I'm so angry, and you're like, no, I'm not so angry. Oh, wait, there's a different feeling there. Let's see what it is. Really learning to identify. So for me, what I had to identify last week, and I was mad that I was mad. I'm really peaceful. I love my life. I've created this great environment. So I was upset that I was upset. But it was like, okay, I was mad, but it wasn't that I was mad. I was feeling shame, and I allowed that. I forgot for a few minutes who I was because of words, like a phone call, or people say things and we take it to heart instead of knowing who we are and falling in love with ourselves. When we don't feel the feelings, we can keep everything at bay, we think, but we don't keep anything at bay.
Well, and shame is a tough thing because we all have faults. We all have things that we screw up. I mean,
really?
It's
you screw up?
all the time.
I know, we're so human.
And yet we
Thank
don't
God.
want to admit it, especially when it's something we're prideful about, something we feel like, I'm good at this. I don't screw this up.
And then someone points the finger and you're
then you're like, no, that's not true. And you blow up, or you feel this fury because you feel like your pride has been dropped down a few notches.
Right. And that is the protection, right? When our ego and our pride, it's protecting ourselves, because we'll get hurt if we're not perfect. We'll get hurt if we're not right. And what amazes me all the time, my sister and I always say this, I'm in my 60s.
Yeah.
All this stuff that happened when I was a little girl, and it's still, right? It doesn't just go away. Sometimes people go,
50 plus years
oh, that was years ago. It doesn't matter, but it does, because as long as it's affecting us, it matters. Wow. So until we're able to release it, feel the feelings, like we talked about the child that was left behind, finding a way to love ourselves. I said to somebody, I'm a coach, so I said to a person, they said they didn't understand why they were doing this thing. And I said, well, it's because you hate yourself. And they were so mad at me. And I felt bad for saying it, but it was true, because I get it. Yeah. That self-loathing. A few weeks later, they said, boy, that really stung, but it really opened my eyes. And I go, oh my gosh, I said, I thought I lost you forever over saying that. But we have so much self-loathing because we have been so convinced we're bad. So even when we're feeling the feelings, we're like, okay, we're supposed to feel these feelings, but it's bad to feel these feelings, but you're telling me I have to There's so many mixed messages. And I think if you can find a way to be quiet at least 5 minutes a day, to just, you can't clear your mind, sing a song, whatever, but be very intentionally just quiet, to still those voices, because it's so easy to keep busy and keep everything, like we think if we stay busy enough that we'll outrun it? I don't know, but I'm guilty of it.
Hide it. That's actually another episode I want to do, is how we actually numbed our feelings, the things we did, and what we did in order to not to feel feelings. Right. But I think I wanted to do this first because it's important, I think, to allow yourself to have feelings, to learn what your feelings really are.
And know that it's a process. It's not like, okay, today I'm going to feel a feeling, okay, now I'm better, right? No, it's a process.
It takes a while.
Yeah, and like for me, a lot of times I would look at my children. And so I remember one time something happened and I was like, my daughter doesn't even know. When she was 3, she doesn't even know what a great life she has. Yeah. And then I feel like this was God. I went, I'm so glad she doesn't have to know that. But there was that part of me that was like, because that was the little girl in me going, you think you got it bad, right? Yeah. And that's what we're doing. When we don't feel our feelings, we're reacting out of that. And that's not who we are.
No.
That's what happened to us. That's not who we are.
And that's the point, is that the feelings aren't the grief. They're not the trauma. The feelings are what the trauma did to us, and we need to express those feelings so we can get through it. The feelings are not the hurt that was done to us. Right. The feelings, the sorrow is there because of what's done, but we can't get through the sorrow until we express it.
There was, I think like in the 90s, there was sort of this trend in sitcoms where somebody would say something and the person would go, ouch. Right? Like, and to me, I was like, wow, Can you believe it?
Yeah.
It's like they went, you hurt my feelings. Who says that? Right? Who admits to that? And that was, for me, it was so freeing to go, wow, I can just say, ouch. Right?
Yeah.
That hurt. That smarted.
Well, and it's funny, but I find that it's a lot of fun now to actually enjoy feelings, all kinds of feelings. Not
Like
all
what?
of them, but
Tell me when you've enjoyed lately.
just being joyful about my dog is
Yeah.
a pain in the butt, but
you're
he's
so
also very playful.
Tonight was so hilarious.
And there are times when I'm
Tickled by him.
I'm tickled, but he drives me nuts, but at the same time, he's so funny and he's so...
Okay, we have to set the stage a little. When this dog stands on his hind legs, he's taller than me.
Yeah, he's a big boy, and he's very much a puppy, even though
Yes.
he's 2 years old,
They're
and
very big.
and very big. And he gets bored because we have two other dogs, but they're female and they're older. They're 6 years old, and they don't play with him. So when I come home, he just wants to play. And there's times when I come home from work and I'm just beat. I'm tired. I need a nap. And it's like...
Ain't happening,
ain't
Dad.
happening. And I've got these feelings of, oh, for crying out loud. But at the same time, it's so much fun that he is such a goofball.
So, two things I think about when you said, I never thought about enjoying my feelings, but Christmas for me this year was fabulous. Christmases are not good for me. They're very rarely good for me. But I got to be with my grandkids, and I got to be with at least two of my children and their partners. And I got to just enjoy. I wasn't in charge of anything. I got to just, and my youngest, I'll tell you, so I'm Grandma Lala to everyone. To her, I'm Lala. She is, this girl's got opinions, and she's 4 years old. But I got to just thoroughly enjoy her. And then today I was helping another friend with a podcast. He's a cancer survivor, so he's both sides of the stethoscope. He's trying to bridge that gap.
Wow.
He got a cat. They got a kitten over Christmas, him and his partner. And he was beside himself. This kitten is driving him crazy. He's like, look,
Kittens are a lot of work.
It just sat in the plant, and I'm absolutely thoroughly enjoying the kitten. I'm playing, it's trying to bite me, but kittens aren't like dogs. You can't let dogs bite because then they'll keep kittens.
Keep biting.
And he's like, don't let that kitten bite you. And he was just getting so frustrated. And I was thoroughly, absolutely enjoying that kitten.
Yeah.
And I loved it. But, I could have earlier been caught up in his feelings of angst of, it's getting in our way and it's, biting, and it's like, it's a kitten. But it is funny how that, when we don't feel feelings, then it does restrict us.
Because we stuff them and they stay there. And we're like, all the time, and we don't get to just let it out. It's like when Declan's my puppy, my dog,
big puppy.
When he's frustrating, I let it out, and I say, "What is wrong with you?" But then I get over it because he's such a goof, and it's like, okay, let's go do something. But if you just stuff it, it just stays there.
So Kevin's wife, Charnel, is my dear friend, and she always feeds me when I come for podcasting. And we had these dumplings, and she had cooked them and soaked them. And just before I bit into them, I'm like, is this like a dumpling, like it's a biscuit, like all bread? But it was like when I bit into it, and there was so much inside, right? Yeah. So you look at this, it looked pretty in its little, pastry or whatever, pasta cover, but when you bit into it, and it's like, that's with feelings, when we break them open. And if you can go, hey, wait a minute, it's okay to feel my feelings. And I'm in the living room with my family, and I'm really pissed off, so I'm going to go in my bedroom, in my bathroom, and I'm going to feel these feelings. And if I have to break something, or if I have to yell a little, the other day I got in the elevator at work, and there's never anybody in the elevator anymore. But as the elevator was coming up, I thought I heard singing. And my old co-worker, AJ, always sang in the elevator and in the stairwell. And so he's not with us anymore. I mean, he's in Colorado. He's not dead. He's not dead. But so I heard this singing, and I thought, oh, it's AJ. And then the elevator opened, and there was this man. Of course, he had a mask on. And I got in, and I looked over at when the doors closed, and I go, were you singing? And he said, yeah. And then I noticed there was a tear coming down his face. And I said, that made my day. I didn't want to in one floor try to explain to him about AJ and being
Yeah.
gone and how much I missed him. But I thought he was feeling something.
Yeah.
And then I walk in, I invade the elevator, and then I'm like, were you singing? He could have said no.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And then I was able to just say thank you.
Mm.
And it was like he was obviously singing, feeling something, and then to see that tear on his face, who knows, maybe he got splashed on his way in, but to me it was like he was singing and there was some emotion,
There was real emotion there that he let down.
Yeah. So as you go through the week, give yourself permission to feel feelings. And at first it's going to be like, I don't even know what that means. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when we're learning something new, like even all this computer and this technology, it's like, I don't know how this works, but you just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Just keep showing up and you'll start to get it. You'll start to understand it. And the most beautiful thing is when you turn around to somebody else who's a few steps behind you and you say, yeah, feelings suck, but you know what? It's so worth it.
It's so worth it. And that's it. Give yourself a break because you've learned the hard way not to feel feelings. You've learned the hard way not to express feelings. You've learned the hard way that your feelings are bad. Feelings aren't good. They get you in trouble. So give yourself a chance to try it a little bit at a time with someone safe.
Right.
And just let yourself learn how to feel.
Before we go, I just want to say, the law of attraction. So people,
opposites attract.
Yeah, well, there you go. People say you can't manifest things, but when you think about it, think of all the bad things we've manifested. Right? Because we've been sad, we've been mad. Sure, it's like when a client says, I'm never going to get that job, I'm like, then you won't.
Yeah, you probably
and so
won't.
when you think about how as a child you've had to manifest
Mm-hmm.
all of this to stay safe, so you have the capability, and it's just turning it around. It's flipping it on its head and going, you don't get to control me anymore. I get to be free. And there's so much to be said for freedom. And I will say for the things that I've suffered, the things I've been through, I mean, going through divorce, raising kids on my own, is that the freedom I have been able to have because I've been able to face my issues, feel my feelings, to say, ouch, even at risk.
Yeah.
And I mean, marching into my new boss's office the other day in COVID when everyone's losing their job. So part of it was a reaction, but part of it also was, I'm not putting up with this.
Yeah.
And so you see how there's kind of two, when we started out, it's like, yeah, I overreacted. But in a way, when I look at it, I sort of stood up for myself. Yeah. So it's like, it's really translating. It's constantly translating as we go, but it's taking that minute to go. I always say, how you've got, when you point your finger, you have three pointing back. It's like when you're feeling frustrated, then you look at your hands and these fingers are pointing at you. It's like, what is this about?
Mm-hmm. What's causing this frustration?
And I'm a huge proponent of journaling. If you can do it by thinking, that's great. But writing it down takes it to a different level because it's so validating.
Well, like Charnel's therapist said, feelings are
information.
So if we bottle up and hide those feelings, we won't get that information.
Yeah.
But so there's two sides to it. It's one thing to feel them and get through the feelings, so you get through your grief, get through your sorrow, get through your anger, but also you get that information where those feelings are coming from, and you learn about yourself, the things you've been hiding.
Right. And the fact that we think we can't feel feelings, we're human. We're supposed to.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have feelings, and we're all going to have bad feelings. Yeah. And that's how we learn. There's this sweet young man, he's 12, and he wants to write a book. And his grandma called me and said, my grandson wants to write a book. Oh. And what I loved about it was that he's in a really great situation being raised by his grandparents, but he has some sadness. But, watching him talk about, like, he has a really grumpy grandpa. And making his grumpy grandpa a character. So, it's like, it's acknowledging, grandpa's grumpy. Grandpa's getting up there in age. And
he's probably a little old to be a parent again.
Yeah. And so, it's just so awesome to see when a kid can start to embrace that and to look at a child and say, I want to be like that child and I want to feel those feelings. And when we were little, it wasn't safe. But what if we embrace those childlike feelings now and just be silly and you know, his grandma is very silly and she has a very high, squeaky voice. And what is so funny is every time I'm with them, the family, the grandson and his dad, whenever my friend, like whenever she says anything, I mean, it could be saying hi to the dog. They look up and they giggle because they get such a kick out of her. And, you know, and I look at that and I just think, you know, I want that childlike joy.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
that childlike feeling to just feel my feelings and be ridiculous or be angry, you know, because if we're blocking the anger, then we're blocking also the silly, innocent, sweet stuff.
That innocence was stolen from us, but we can regain it by regaining our feelings and regain that joy that we didn't have. We didn't allow ourselves to have.
Right.
So
yeah. There's a whole other area I want to go into. We'll bring it up another time. That's different than men and abuse is women and what they're wearing and how they dress and how that affected my life being abused as a small child. I couldn't wear a swimming suit. I couldn't dress and, you know, not that you want to be a provocative teenager, but because of that, I found myself missing out on so much of those just fun, flirty things. Right?
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that another time. And also another time I want to have Charnel on. And if you have any ideas of what you would like to talk about, or if you want to talk on this podcast, you want to share your story, please reach out to us because every story matters. Every story is different.
And we want to hear your story.
I remember when I first realized I had been abused and I thought it was one person in my family. And I thought, I'm going to go on the Christian circuit and I'm going to talk about it as I get well. But then it happened more. There were grandparents involved, you know, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I'm not going to say a freaking thing about this. But right. It's like, it just evolves, but your story is important and you can be anonymous. You don't have to give your real name, whatever it takes. But we want to do whatever we can to support you in sharing your story and in being free from this because it does not have to have chains on you your whole life.
No. And it's important. Our stories are important so that people will realize that the scope of this.
So, right. And we listened to a podcast this last week of somebody who had kind of talked about being abused, wasn't sure if he would publish the podcast. But for us, it was like, see, even people that are famous, people that have followings, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, this is something I've been dealing with. So we know there's a huge percent of the population.
It's a lot more prevalent than most people realize.
Right.
And that's part of our reason for doing this is so people realize the scope and also realize that there's a lot of people that really need support.
Exactly. And what Kevin always says, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Right? We're not doing this
alone. You're never alone. And we want to be there for you. So let us know where you're at.
Yeah, reach out to us.
And if you want to, we will interview. If not, we'll just do what we can.
Yeah. And like we say, we're not therapists, but we're good listeners. We are. I teach listening. I'm a coach. I teach it. We are great listeners.
So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
So on that note, let's pray. Father, I thank you for being the best listener and for accepting all our feelings about what's going on in our lives, but also how we feel about you. Sometimes I know I've been angry, I've been upset, I've been disappointed. I just heard about Ravi Zacharias yesterday, and it just was crushing. And Lord, it just makes me realize we're all fallen, we're all frail, we're all susceptible, we're all sinners. And Lord, I just pray thanks for your forgiveness for our fallings, and I pray that you would continue to reach out to us and give us a reason to look forward to being with you, because there are times when I need you there, and I know you're always there, and I thank you for that. Lord, I just pray you would help those people listening, that they would have the strength to explore their feelings and explore what they can do to reach out to you, Lord, and be accepted by you, Lord. And I pray that they would realize that you accept them regardless of how they feel about you, that you love them anyway. Even when they're angry, even when they're sad, even when they're hurting, that you want them to know that you love them and you're there for them. Lord, I just pray for your presence in their lives, especially when they're going through feelings that they've hidden most of their lives. I just pray that you would let them know that you're feeling those feelings with them too, that you're grieving with them, you're hurting with them, and you want to lift them up and bring them to a place of joy and grace and healing in their life, in your name.
And Lord, I thank you so much that you can take it. You can take our anger, our frustration. And Father, for some reason, I don't know why this is coming to me, but I think of plants and animals and how many different species and how many different there is. And that's the same with our feelings, Lord, that there are so many different feelings. And Lord, so many of us have lived in the one or the other that we haven't got to experience, true joy or, frustration that's not just anger or amusement, Lord, that you would help us to realize that by feeling feelings, we get to experience so much more of you and your compassion and your love. And Father, I just think of how so many of us get to a place and we feel like, well, this is my life, I'm done, this is it. And that no matter how old we are, we reinvent ourselves, we keep going, we learn new things. It's never too late, we're never done until we're done, and that you give us so much grace. And Lord, sometimes I feel like, why has it taken me so long? But I know that, it's all a process, and we discover and we grow in different ways, and each one of us in different ways. And I'm just grateful, Lord, for your patience with me and for the people that have been willing to come alongside me and to validate me. And Lord, that's who we want to be for others. And we know that the people listening want to be that for others as well. And I pray that through this podcast that we might not only minister to those listening, but those listening might be able to minister to their friends, to their family, to the ones that are hurting. And I just thank you for that awesome thing you've created as a community for us, Lord, that we really need each other and we really need you. In your Son's holy name, amen.
Amen.